Good afternoon, parents and Year 9 students. I hope that you are all keeping well. We've got obviously a slightly different format to Year 9 options evening this year, so I'm hoping this live event will be useful for you, and we'll go through most of the questions that you have. If you do have questions that you think of as I'm talking this evening, please do put a question in the sort of Q&A box, and we'll either do our best to answer them as the event goes on. I've got a brilliant team of question elves here to help, and if there's anything that they can't answer as I'm talking through, then I'll answer those towards the end. Okay, so just to give you a bit of an overview as to what this presentation will talk through, as you can see here, we're going to go through the importance of getting curriculum choices right. I know you're really aware of this already because we've had quite a few Year 9s and parents getting in contact asking about options choices. So hopefully this will give you the information you need on that. I always get questions every year since it was introduced about the English Baccalaureate, so I'll talk to you about that and just give you some more information to help you inform your decision. We'll talk through the process as well, because we've moved to using Sims options for making choices online. Again, if you've lost access to Sims parent portal for any reason, don't worry about that. I'll talk to you about how you can get that reactivated or get your password reset. And I'll talk you through the process of how you physically go about making options choices. There's also some more information on the different courses that we have available and how you can find out a little bit more, and then finally any sort of additional advice that you might need for sort of more personal or specific queries. I should have introduced myself at the start. If you don't know who I am, my name's Mrs Gould and I'm deputy head here. I oversee the curriculum, so hence you've got me this evening for this event. So as I'm sure you are all very, very well aware, really, this is about making sure that as students make their option choices, they're making the choices that are right for them. We are looking for making sure that students have a curriculum that will give them opportunities for their next steps, that will open doors from them, and not leave them in a position where, when trying to apply for post-16 courses, they realise that actually there was a subject they needed that they didn't take. We want as many routes open for students as possible, rather than doors being closed. I know when I was 14, many decades ago, I had no idea what I wanted to do. So it was about choosing subjects that gave me as many pathways. Other students, other young people have got a really clear idea about what they want for their future. So it's equipping them with what's best for them. And as I say, it's making sure that what you don't find is halfway through Year 10 or halfway through Year 11 that you've picked the wrong choice. So right now, this evening and over the next week or so, it's about finding out as much information as you possibly can. When students are back in school after the 8th of March, speak to teachers, speak to other students they know who do these courses, ask all the questions that they need to ask so that they are really armed with the information they need to make those choices. No question is a silly question when it comes to finding out about what you're going to be studying for 2 years. So in thinking about what are the key things to be working through before making these choices, if your son or daughter has a potential career plan already, great. Do a bit of research, find out what is needed for that. Mr. Downs, our careers advisor here, is on hand to give help. So, you know, there's always some good expertise in terms of careers to find out additional information. Looking at our sixth form prospectus, other colleges' prospectuses about what you need in order to access courses as well is worth doing if you know what you want to go on to do. Thinking about, I know it seems like a long way away, but again, if you've got a particular university course that you want to follow, are there specific courses that you need to start building your curriculum foundation in now at GCSE? If you are like me, you have no idea what you want to do yet, or maybe 10 different ideas and you can't decide between them, then the best combination of subjects I can suggest is one that will give you as broad and balanced a range of qualifications as possible. And I'll talk a little bit more about that shortly. For me, I always advise students to think about what are you good at, what are you passionate about, what do you enjoy? those are subjects that you're likely to do really well in. So thinking about your strengths and talents as a student is really important. And the last bit is one I cannot emphasize enough. Know what the course looks like. So how is it assessed? How is it examined? Is there coursework? Is it 100% exam? Is there practical work? What proportion of lessons is that compared to theory? Make sure you know what you're going to be doing day in, day out in the classroom for the couple of years of your. So in terms of a balanced curriculum, I usually do get a question at this point of somebody saying, do I have to do science in year 10? Yes, you do. There are a core range of subjects that every student has to study, and those are the 4 that you can see on screen now. So every student has to study English, maths, science and RE. And for students who do English, there will be English language and English literature. So that's 2 GCSEs, maths is a single. Science will either be the 2 GCSEs or the separate sciences, the triple award, if you will, which again, I will talk a little bit more about in a second. And because we are a Catholic school, obviously RE is at the core of our curriculum. So those are non-negotiable for everybody, but obviously they will give you really, really good academic tools to progress onto your next stages of study. I'll briefly mention about science because I know there's often a few questions about this. The options booklet has a really good set of information about combined sciences or trilogy versus separate sciences or triple. I don't know why they call combined trilogy. It's more confusing when you think of it that way, but combined sciences is worth 2 GCSEs. The separate sciences, you get a GCSE in physics, biology and chemistry separately. That's not something that we decide as to who does what right now in year 9, it's a school decision as to who does which of the sciences, but not doing the separate sciences doesn't prevent you from going on to do A-level science. I'll just make that very clear now. That's often a worry that people have. It's obviously something I would say discuss more with science teachers on Parents' Evening next week if you've got specific questions about that. But combined science does provide progression to A-level just as well as the triple science does. In addition to those core subjects, we obviously have core games which students do as part of keeping them fit and healthy and active, and then students will choose 3 option subjects, and we have a range of different subjects that students can choose. So we have humanities, which includes geography and history, MFL, so modern foreign languages, which include Spanish and French, and computer science. At this point, sometimes people will ask about whether they can do a different language because maybe they speak a different language at home and they're fluent in, say, Italian or Portuguese. We don't teach those languages here. There may be the opportunity of somebody sitting an exam in that subject throughout Key Stage 4, but we can't provide any lessons or tuition on that. Where we can act as an exam centre for that subject. And again, if you've got more questions on that, then you can either email myself or you can email Mrs Haskell, our exams officer, for more information. In addition, we've got the creative and expressive arts subjects. So we've got art, photography, music, drama and dance. PE as a course as well. The range of subjects within design and technology, including textiles, resistant materials, electronics, graphics, and food preparation and nutrition, business studies, child development. Now, both of those subjects include a Cambridge National qualification. So business, we have GCSE, but we also have Cambridge National in business. Child development is a Cambridge National course. Again, I often get questions about this. So just to explain, they are GCSE equivalent courses, Cambridge Nationals. They are level 2 and level 1, so they can you can achieve a grade in them that's equivalent to grades 9 to 1, just like a normal GCSE. The only reason they're not called a GCSE is because they have a higher proportion of coursework than a GCSE is allowed to have. So they're more of a blended course in terms of assessment, part exam and part coursework. So again, can be really good for those students whose strength is to be able to build up their assessment over time, and worth looking at the differences between those in the options booklet as well. And we also have GCSE Citizenship, which is, again, a really popular course here at St Peter's. So you have that core curriculum in the centre, and then it's about selecting 3 option subjects that will be useful for you in terms of next steps. So the Ebac, or English Baccalaureate, I get quite a lot of questions about this because it's something that's been around and about in the media, and people hear a lot about, and it's on school performance tables and so on. Just to be really clear, the Ebac is not a qualification in its own right. So a student who achieves the Ebac does not get an additional certificate. They don't get any sort of grade or anything to say, I have achieved the Ebac. It is a performance measure for schools, so schools are assessed on the percentage of students that are entered for the Ebac, are eligible for it, and who actually achieve it. It's assessed in that, in terms of school performance tables, you know if a student's achieved it because it's got 5 elements. So students would need to get a good pass or a grade 5 or above in English, maths, 2 sciences, a humanity, and a modern foreign language. So if they get a grade 5 in each one of those categories, then they've achieved the Ebac. But as I say, it doesn't provide a qualification for students. It was designed as a measure to show that schools are providing a broad and balanced curriculum for the students that they have. And you may have seen stories in the past about the impact on Ebac in terms of how it affects other subjects and that sort of thing. So it can sometimes be a bit of a controversial measure. And parents will often ask me, should my child be doing it? Is it necessary? Do they need to have it? The best advice that I can give you really is to think about what is right for your child as an individual. Don't be worrying about school performance tables because that's not going to benefit your child. As nice as a measure might look for a school, what's important is that your child has the right qualifications for their progression. If your child does not know what they want to go on to do, the Ebac is a good way of ensuring that they have a broad and balanced curriculum. That's what it was designed to help provide. If you've got a child that is talented in the arts and they want to do music and drama, and that will stop them then from achieving the Ebac, my advice would be, if that's their talent, if that's their passion, do music and drama, because that's what's right for your child. So yes, it's there. It's a good starting point if you don't know what your next steps are. But equally, if you've got a passion, if you've got a talent, if you've got a real enjoyment of a particular subject, then my advice would be to consider that subject for GCSE. And these are just some additional questions that you can think about. If you've got an aptitude or a passion for languages and humanities, then great, you should be picking that anyway. And I wouldn't be worrying about it sort of falling under an Ebac measure. Sometimes people worry about university entry requirements, and so this has come up. In the past, some universities have said students need to have Ebac grades, if you like, grade 5 in the Ebac subjects as part of their entry measures. That really has kind of gone away now. The vast majority, if not all universities, have really moved away from that because actually what they want is students that have got good grades and qualifications in subjects that they excel in and are passionate about. So moving on to the actual process. So in order to actually make the physical choices, so to put your options in the past, we would have had a paper form that would have gone home with tick boxes, and then students would have brought those back in and we plug them into a system. So we used Sims Options online last year and it was really successful. It was just a really simple way of getting it in, and it meant there were no forms crumpled at the bottom of a school bag, getting soaked in, whatever's leaked out of a juice bottle. It also meant as well that we were getting them in a timely fashion, so it let me get on with the options process that little bit more quickly. So you will need, as parents, to be able to log into your Sims parent app. If you can't do that because you've forgotten your password or for any reason it's not working, the first thing that I will say is don't worry. This is not a first come, first serve process. So if it takes a couple of days for you to get access to it, it's not going to disadvantage your child at all. But if you have forgotten your password, there'll be an email address towards the end of the presentation, and Mrs Hull, one of our admin team, will be able to get that reset for you so you can get access to that. Now, Sims Options isn't live just yet. It will become live on Friday of next week. So this is to talk you through how it will work, but it won't open until next week, and I'll explain why towards the end. So when you log in, what you should see is your child's details there. So I've blanked these out, obviously, for GDPR, but you would see your child's name and their photo if we have it on our school system, and their date of birth, etc. And then you'll see a list of subjects. Now, what you need to do is just to click the subjects that you want to actually opt for. It will then put them in order of preference. So the subject that you pick first, it will go into the system as being, this is the one that you want to study the most. This is your first choice, ranked in order of really wanting to do them. Now, this is useful for me because what it will allow me to do is when I'm actually looking at options is to know what is the absolute #1 subject a student really is passionate about doing, what's their kind of second on their list, what's their third on their list, and so on. Okay, and I'll explain why that's useful in just a moment. So you go through, you make your options choices. You will also need to put a reserve in. So when you make the options choice, if you click on the name of the subject, so for example, computer studies, it will turn blue, and that goes in as that's my subject choice. If you click on the box that says reserve, it will allow you to pick one reserve. So although it says in order of preference, you can only pick one reserve subject. Now that's important because whilst we try and accommodate option choices as much as possible, some courses are really, really popular and really oversubscribed. And so actually not everybody will be able to do them. I try my absolute best to give people their #1 choice as much as I possibly can, and then look at choice 2 and then look at choice 3. But it does mean that sometimes I need to use a reserve choice because I can't satisfy all 3 of the options that people have chosen. So it's really important when you pick a reserve choice that you do pick something that you would actually like to study, because otherwise I will allocate that reserve choice and you might not be able to move out of it come year 10 if other groups are full that you want to move into. So think about it as carefully as you would those other 3 choices would be my advice. There's a comments box at the bottom. Student comments are absolutely optional, and likewise for parent comments, you don't need to put a comment in. It's just useful if there's a specific thing that you want to mention in there. It's just a handy way to pass that info on. But I would ask that you tick the box that says parent or carer approval. It just lets me know that it's something that you've definitely discussed. I know it's a parent account on Sims, so it's unlikely it would have happened without your approval. But if you could tick that, please, because otherwise it holds it as pending on the system. Now, the key thing to note for this, the deadline is the 19th of March, so thankfully we'll have students back in school prior to then, which will be really nice because they'll be able to talk to teachers and so on as well in person about this. As I've said, it's not first come, first serve. So if next week your son or daughter picks their choices, they put them into the system, you press submit, and then suddenly they have a change of heart or you know, suddenly decide they really want to do something different, log back in, undo the changes, select what you want to change, resubmit it. It makes no difference at all in terms of the process. Once it hits the 19th of March, that's when I will take them all in. I won't even have known if you've made a change. So it won't disadvantage your son or daughter if they change their mind 3 or 4 times even. Once we get to the 19th of March, they will then be closed. So at that point, I'll start working on the option blocks and look at the sort of demand for classes for next year. And obviously, after that, once all of that's resolved, it's usually very early in the summer term that I'd be in contact with yourselves just to say these are the options that your child has been allocated. If after the 19th of March there is a change of heart and you need to make a change, do contact in. I will just say it just does become more difficult to accommodate changes once I start working on them. And once we start actually putting together the timetable for next year, it might be a change that was previously possible becomes no longer possible because it's now been staffed and put into a timetable. So the earlier changes, the better. But as I say, contact in. I'd much rather that than a child waiting until September and being really unhappy, because if we can change something, then we absolutely will. The email address that you will need if you can't access your Sims Parent app account is just there, so please do make a note of that. And if for any reason you just cannot get onto Sims Parent app and you need a paper form, then let us know and we can send one out to you. And obviously your son or daughter can bring it back in once they're back in school, or you can post it back in. Okay, and that doesn't disadvantage any student if that's how we've got their option choices in. Getting the choices in is what's important. One thing that I often get asked as well in terms of option choices is, well, can my child change if they give it a couple of weeks as a trial in September, realise they don't like it, can they change in September or early October? Honestly, it depends a little bit. I would advise that as much as possible that they make a choice that they are happy with now and don't bank on doing a trial of a couple of weeks. There's no guarantee that they will be able to move out of that subject in September. The course they might want to move into may well be full. The way that their options are blocked might prevent them from swapping to a different group entirely. So it's really important that they do get it right. Again, if a student is really unhappy and we've got the facility to make a change very early in the academic year, then we will of course do that. People do sometimes make decisions that aren't quite right for a variety of reasons, but it just becomes more difficult to do once the new academic year starts. Hence me saying, it's better if you can try and get it right now. So that's just an image there of the form. That's what it will look like if you do need to have a paper form. And because you are filling it out by hand, you'll need to put 1, 2, 3 in to show which is your first, second and third choice, and then an R for the reserve, so that it's clear what one is what. It says on this form, and actually it's an important thing for me to mention, in the very, very rare occasions that a student might have more than one option that we can't accommodate, or we can't accommodate the reserve as well as one of their options, we would be in contact. I'd have a conversation with the student and with the parent as well, just to really talk through the ins and outs of that and to offer as much support as possible. It's rare, it does occasionally happen, so just to be open and honest about that. Wherever we can, we accommodate. If we run into difficulties like that, then we would be in touch. Okay, next steps. So next steps that I can advise are as follows. Spend as much time as you can reading through the information in the booklets and discussing possible choices with your sons and daughters. There's loads of information in there. Shortly you'll see a link to the option subject videos. So this year it's a bit of a brave new world for our subject leaders. Rather than you being able to come into school and go and see the subject leader for, say, child development or PE, obviously you're not able to be in school with us. So they have recorded a video with frequently asked questions, the sorts of things they would normally discuss with families on that particular evening, in the hope that it will answer the majority of the questions that you might have. So they are on our school YouTube channel, the link of which will be coming up shortly. So watch through those. There are a lot of them. There's a couple more that will appear tomorrow, but they'll all be there by the end of the week. Most of them are there now. Obviously, you don't need to watch all of them. You can watch the ones that you're specifically interested in, and watch them at a time that's convenient for you. But they are there to help you make that choice. If after you've watched that video you need to speak to a specific subject teacher, then book an appointment, and there's information about that on School Cloud as to how you go about doing that. So you'll need to log into School Cloud in order to make that booking. And some information came out about how to log into School Cloud yesterday. So if you didn't receive that yesterday, then just give a ring into reception and they can forward that on to you. Obviously, if the video's answered your questions, brilliant. But if not, if there's something really specific, then do contact in for that particular appointment. Please do make sure that you put your subjects in order of preference and that you select a reserve, because we won't process the options and start working on them until we've got the 3 choices and the reserve in for everybody. And the deadline is the 19th of March. Now, I'm just going to put these all up, but talk about them as one thing. So again, a big bit of advice that I can give to students is make sure it's what you want, not what your friends want. So sometimes people do get influenced into picking a subject because they think that they might end up in the same classes as their best friend. Doesn't necessarily guarantee that's the case, even if you're doing the same subjects. And often you'll end up studying a subject for 2 years that you don't really enjoy because you thought you might, have a nice time with your friend in lessons. Think about what's important for you. So don't base it on your friends. Don't base it on who teaches you currently, because you might not have them next year either. So don't let that person put you off or make you choose that when you might not have ordinarily chosen it. As I've said, there's no such thing as a silly question when it comes to this. So please ask for advice. Ask your teachers, speak to mums and dads, speak to older brothers and sisters who've studied these current GCSEs. Mr Downs is here in terms of careers advice, so please do reach out to him if you need to. But any staff in school will be able to help with advice if you need to ask any other questions. So there's a couple of questions that have come through on the chat from parents on the question sort of section. So I'll run through as many of those as I can now. That's the playlist link for the GCSE option videos, and I think it's also being posted in the sort of response to questions as well, so to make it easier to copy and paste. How do we choose for students in oversubscribed subjects which are capped for numbers? So as I say, I tend to look really at those students who've picked first choices. We start with that to try and accommodate first choice for as many people as possible. So if it's one that you absolutely are desperate to study, put it as your first choice. If it's very, very oversubscribed and even that becomes limiting, then I look at the sort of range of options overall, just to try and make sure that I'm able to satisfy as many of the other option choices for students as possible. So in some cases it might be that just because of the combination of subjects that people pick, if one person didn't get it, they might not also be able to get their second choice either because of the reserve that they've chosen. So I tend to look at it as a bit of a holistic view, but trying to accommodate first choice preference as much as possible. It's not perfect, I'll be honest. It's never an ideal thing because I would love to be able to give everybody all three of the choices that they want. It's about trying to accommodate as many people with first and then second choice preferences as possible and kind of working through it that way. Can I repeat the date that Sims Options is open? Yes, it will be next Friday, and I did say that I would explain why that would be. It's so that it's open after the options evening and parents evening appointments next Wednesday and Thursday, so that actually you've had time to look at videos, you've had time to read through the booklets, to have conversations with staff, and then Sims Options will be open so that everybody can start accessing those. I'm sure some of you are itching to get your options in there now, but as I said, it's not first come first serve, so it won't disadvantage anybody if you do it on the 5th of March or if you do it on the 19th of March itself. It will make absolutely no difference at all. And when will they get current predicted grades to inform their choices? So this is a good question. We're currently collecting in information from class teachers at the moment, because this is our usual time of year for collecting in academic data about students in years 7, 8, 9 and 10, in fact. So this is something that we're collecting in. Obviously, being honest, teachers are putting those grades in, but they are probably a little less confident than they might be in other years with a half a term of remote learning. They've got a really good evidence base, given that we've had half a term of remote learning. But that does have a little bit of an impact in terms of the grades that they're putting forward, but they're making the best professional judgment that they can. So that's being collected in at the moment and will then be shared out with parents as soon as we've got that collated in. So it should be within the next couple of weeks. Obviously, we've got parents' evening next week, so you can obviously speak to your child's teachers as well and ask them about their grades, and talk to them as well. Do you think my child will be, good at this subject at GCSE? What do you think would be a good way forward for them in that? I think that might be all of the questions that have come through, but I'll just check with my question elves. Anything else come through? Okay, all right. So I will leave it here for this evening. Obviously, if something springs to mind, or if you've got a personal question that you didn't want to put on this evening, then please do get in contact. Anything about the options process itself, please do just email into school marked for my attention for Mrs Gould, and I can answer that. Anything subject specific, then obviously please do just get in contact with the heads of subject, and those are all named in the options booklet, so you'll be able to find that information there. And if there's any other advice or help that we can give, then please do get in contact, because I know this is a really important step for your sons and daughters. I hope that you're all keeping really safe and well. We're really looking forward to having students back in school soon. So take care, and I wish you a really good rest of your evening. Thank you.